One photograph, 5 seconds of defiance captured forever, a single image that tennis authorities desperately wanted erased from history. When they told Serena Williams to destroy it, she did something that shocked the world. She made it her weapon instead. What happened next didn't just change her career, it started a revolution that transformed professional sports forever. But this wasn't just any photograph. This was evidence of something so damaging, so explosive, that the most powerful people in tennis were willing to end the career of the greatest player who ever lived to keep it buried. They offered her money, titles, guarantees, anything to make this image disappear. She refused, and that's when they tried to destroy her. Welcome to the Story Gook. Before we dive into the story of the forbidden photograph that turned Serena Williams from a tennis champion into a global revolutionary, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching today. And if you believe that some truths are too important to hide, hit that subscribe button because this story will show you what happens when power meets principle, and why sometimes losing everything is the only way to win what really matters. This is the story of 5 seconds that changed everything. 5 seconds that exposed the dark underbelly of professional tennis. 5 seconds that cost Serena Williams her sport and gave her the world. March 15th, 2019. The BNP Paribas Open Final in Indian Wells, California. Serena Williams versus Bianca Andreescu. To most of the world, it looked like just another tennis match between two champions. But what the cameras didn't show was the conversation happening in the tunnel before the match. Dr. Rebecca Matthews, the tournament's head medical officer, approached Serena with what seemed like a routine request. "We need to conduct a random drug test," she said, holding a standard testing kit, standard procedure for all finalists. Serena nodded, accustomed to the routine. She had been tested hundreds of times throughout her career, but as she followed Dr. Matthews to the testing facility, something felt different. The other officials seemed nervous, avoiding eye contact. The room was unusually crowded with WTA executives she didn't recognize. "This will just take a moment," Dr. Matthews said, but her hands were shaking as she prepared the equipment. That's when Serena noticed the camera. Not the official drug testing documentation camera that was standard protocol. This was a different camera, held by a man in an expensive suit who definitely wasn't medical personnel. He was positioned to capture something specific, something that had nothing to do with drug testing. "What's that for?" Serena asked, pointing to the camera. The room went silent. Dr. Matthews looked at the executives, who looked at each other. Finally, one of them spoke. "Ms. Williams, we're going to need to conduct a more comprehensive examination." What Serena Williams discovered in that room would have ended her career if she had stayed silent. The random drug test was a cover for something far more sinister, an attempt to create compromising photographs that could be used to control her. The plan was simple and devastating. Create a situation where Serena would be in a vulnerable position, document it, and then use those images as leverage. If she ever spoke out against the tennis establishment, if she ever demanded equal treatment, if she ever became too powerful, they would have what they needed to destroy her reputation. "We're going to need you to remove additional clothing for a more thorough examination," one of the executives said, while the man with the camera adjusted his position. That's when Serena realized what was happening. This wasn't about drug testing. This was about power. This was about control. This was about having something to hold over the head of the most successful female athlete in history. "Absolutely not," Serena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Ms. Williams," the executive continued, "this is standard procedure for athletes of your profile. High earners, high visibility. We need to ensure complete compliance." It was a lie, and everyone in the room knew it. Male tennis players were never subjected to this kind of examination. Roger Federer had never been asked to remove clothing for photographs. Rafael Nadal had never been positioned for compromising images under the guise of drug testing. This was about Serena Williams being too powerful, too outspoken, too successful for their comfort. And they thought they had found the perfect way to control her. They were wrong. Serena Williams pulled out her phone and did something that would change professional sports forever. She started recording. "I want to document this entire interaction," she announced. "Every word, every request, every person in this room." The panic was immediate. Executives lunged forward to stop her. Dr. Matthews pleaded with her to put the phone away. The man with the camera suddenly became very interested in putting his equipment down. But Serena had already captured what she needed. 5 seconds of video that showed exactly what was happening in that room. Tennis officials attempting to create compromising photographs. A setup designed to control her through blackmail and intimidation. "You can't record this," one of the executives shouted. "This is confidential medical procedure." "Then why is he here with a camera?" Serena replied, pointing to the photographer. "Why are you asking me to remove clothing that has nothing to do with drug testing? Why are there 6 WTA executives in a medical examination room?" The silence was deafening. "I'm leaving," Serena announced, "and this video is going to every media outlet in the world, unless you can explain to me right now why this setup exists." That's when they made their biggest mistake. Instead of apologizing, instead of backing down, instead of admitting their wrongdoing, they chose intimidation. "Ms. Williams," the lead executive said, his voice cold, "if you leave this room, if you don't complete this procedure, you will be immediately suspended from professional tennis. Your ranking will be stripped, your prize money will be frozen, your career will be over." Serena looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. "Watch me," she said, and walked out of the room. Within hours, Serena Williams had done something that shocked the tennis world. She posted the video, not to her personal social media accounts, where it could be dismissed as a personal dispute. She sent it to every major sports journalist, every women's rights organization, every athlete advocacy group in the world. She held a press conference where she played the video on a big screen for a room full of reporters. "This is what female athletes face," she said, her voice steady and powerful. "This is the difference between how male and female champions are treated. This is systematic intimidation, disguised as policy." The response from tennis authorities was swift and brutal. The WTA announced that Serena Williams was suspended indefinitely, pending a comprehensive investigation into her conduct. They froze her prize money, stripped her rankings, and banned her from all WTA events. They thought they were destroying her career. Instead, they were about to learn what happens when you try to silence the most powerful female athlete in history. The suspension of Serena Williams lasted exactly 72 hours. Not because tennis authorities had a change of heart, but because something unprecedented happened. Every major female athlete in the world went on strike. Tennis players, golfers, basketball players, soccer players, track and field athletes. They all refused to compete until Serena Williams was reinstated and the officials in her video were fired. But it wasn't just athletes. Sponsors pulled out of tournaments. Television networks refused to broadcast matches. Corporate partners terminated contracts. The economic pressure was unlike anything professional tennis had ever experienced. More importantly, Serena's video had exposed something that went far beyond tennis. Other female athletes came forward with their own stories of intimidation, inappropriate examinations, and systematic harassment. The 5-second video that tennis officials had tried to suppress became the catalyst for a movement that transformed all of professional sports. "Serena didn't just save herself," said Maria Sharapova in a statement supporting the strike. "She saved all of us. She showed us that we don't have to accept abuse just because they call it procedure." Within a week, the entire WTA leadership had resigned. Dr. Matthews was fired and faced criminal charges. The photographer was arrested for attempted exploitation. The testing procedures that had been used to intimidate female athletes for decades were completely overhauled. But the real transformation wasn't in tennis, it was in Serena Williams herself. The ban that was supposed to end her career had done something her opponents never anticipated. It had freed her from needing their approval. She no longer had to play by rules designed to diminish her power. She no longer had to be grateful for opportunities in a system designed to exploit her. When Serena returned to tennis, she returned as something more powerful than a champion. She returned as a revolutionary. "I spent 20 years trying to be the best player in their system," she said in her first interview after the reinstatement. "Now I realize my job isn't to be the best in their system. My job is to create a better system." The changes that followed were immediate and comprehensive. Drug testing procedures were standardized and transparent. Female athletes gained equal representation in tournament governance. Medical examinations were conducted with the same dignity afforded to male athletes. But most importantly, the culture of intimidation that had silenced female athletes for generations was broken. Serena Williams had proven that they could fight back and win. The photograph that tennis authorities wanted buried became the most powerful image in sports history, not because it showed Serena Williams being victimized, but because it showed her refusing to be victimized. The 5-second video she recorded became more famous than any tennis match she ever played. It was shown in law schools as an example of documenting abuse. It was used in corporate training as an example of standing up to institutional power. It became a symbol of what one person can accomplish when they choose truth over safety. "That photo didn't destroy me," Serena reflected years later. "It revealed who I really was. Not just a tennis player, but someone who refuses to be controlled, intimidated, or silenced." The man who tried to take compromising photographs of her served 2 years in prison. The executives who orchestrated the scheme were banned from professional sports for life. The system that had enabled their behavior was dismantled and rebuilt with protections for athletes. But the most lasting change was in the culture of professional sports. Female athletes stopped accepting inappropriate treatment as normal. They stopped being grateful for opportunities that should have been rights. They stopped allowing themselves to be controlled through fear. Today, the Williams Protocol, the athlete protection standards created after Serena's video, is used in professional sports around the world. Every drug test is filmed by independent monitors. Every medical examination follows strict guidelines. Every athlete has the right to document any interaction with officials. More importantly, a generation of female athletes grew up knowing that they don't have to accept abuse to achieve greatness. They learned from Serena Williams that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be powerless. "Young female athletes ask me about that video all the time," Serena said in a recent interview. "They want to know if I was scared. Of course I was scared. But I was more afraid of what would happen if I stayed silent. I was more afraid of a world where powerful men could control women through intimidation and shame." The photograph that was supposed to end her career became the moment her real legacy began. Not as a tennis champion, but as a revolutionary who proved that some truths are too important to hide, even when revealing them costs you everything. The next time someone tries to silence you, remember the woman who turned their weapon against them. Remember that documentation is power, truth is strength, and sometimes losing everything is the only way to win what really matters. So now I ask you, have you ever documented something wrong to protect yourself or others? Have you ever had to choose between safety and speaking truth? Share your story in the comments and let us know what city you're watching from. Thank you for watching The Story Gook. If this story of courage, documentation, and turning oppression into revolution inspired you, subscribe for more stories that show how ordinary moments can create extraordinary change. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, remember, the photograph they don't want you to take is exactly the one you need to take. The truth they're trying to hide is exactly the truth the world needs to see.